Hello. So we are in our New Year's Day lounging grunge phase, and so it is time to rate all of the books that I read in the second half of the year. So hopefully it should be a clean break on July 1st, as long as I did this correctly. Jane Eyre. So I re-listened to Jane Eyre in Spanish. I have read this book a lot of times, and I still absolutely love it. I think it's going to be a 4.75. It's very close to a 5-star book for me, even though I absolutely am not saying that it's a perfect book, but I think it's like a perfect time capsule in a way. She has a lot of social commentary in there, and then she also has a lot of social commentary that she's not realizing that she's putting in there. Man, everyone must be doing their beginning of the year reading things. I'm gonna skip these two books because these were just books that I read in French and Spanish. I have read Las Cosas que Perdimos en el Fuego before because I've read it several times now. This one kind of hard to rate because it's just a very short children's story. I think it's going to be a 3.5. There was nothing great about it, but it was cute. Mockingjay, 4 stars. I think the pacing is a little bit weird, but very good. Okay, Last Night at the Telegraph Club. Whew, this could be a 5-star. I think it's going to be a 4.75 though. But I highly recommend this book about a young queer woman growing up in San Francisco in the 50s who is Chinese American and has huge amounts of things to say about queer spaces, about American prejudices and history, and it was very, very good. Okay, moving on to August. Maybe? Okay, I reread Wide Sargasso Sea. This is a Jane Eyre prequel, essentially, written by a woman from Jamaica, I think. She's a white woman, but kind of was written to give context to Jane Eyre, and I think this is a 5-star read for me. I love Wide Sargasso Sea. If you've ever read Jane Eyre or been interested in Jane Eyre but didn't feel like reading it, read this one. Okay, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. I really liked this book. I talked about it a fair amount in my review, but I think it's going to get a 4 stars from me because while I think the message of we need to be more extreme in our climate activism is true, I felt like the quality of this book was lacking a little bit, and he made some really, really stereotypical white guy activist mistakes. So, Light Seekers is a thriller mystery type book set in Nigeria, and this was really, really interesting to listen to. It does have some potentially concerning aspects to it, which you can watch a video from Jessie on BookTube that talks about this. No, Jessie on YouTube. Why do I keep messing that up? But I did really like this listen. It was confusing to listen to as an audiobook though, so I would recommend either paying attention or maybe reading it physically. These two Spanish books that I listened to, cute, nothing to write home about, just some little witchy things. We'll give them 4 stars, I guess. Oh, Retrato en Sepia from Isabel Allende. Okay, so let me refresh my mind because I read the second 2 books in this trilogy in the second half of this year, so sometimes I get them a little bit confused. Oh, there's no blurb. That doesn't help me at all. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, so this one I did feel like was lacking a little bit of potential in comparison to some of her other books. It was kind of one of those that felt really slow for a long time, but did kind of pull it together at the end. And so I think I'm going to give this 4 stars, but still such good characters, such good themes. Okay, Laws of Depravity is a thriller, very Criminal Minds-esque book. And it was okay. I think I would give it 3.5 stars. It was okay. Okay, Wool. No. That's not what I said to do. Okay, this was a really, really interesting sci-fi. I did like this a lot better than the show that was based on it, that was on Apple TV, called Silo. I liked the show, that's why I read the book, but the book was, as is often the case, better. And I did continue the series, which we will see. I think I would give this 4.5 stars. The pacing was occasionally a little bit strange, and it was very surface level on kind of the sociological aspects of it, but otherwise, loved this book. Luster. Okay, I loved Luster. I think it's going to be a 4.75 for me because I just love the voice of this character so much. She is a total mess, but the writing of this is spectacular, and I related to her so much, even though we have virtually nothing in common. Okay, I already rated Fourth Wing in English, so I'm not going to do it in Spanish. I rated this one because it was in ARC. This was pretty cute. 4 stars was pretty generous, but a cute middle grade little tiny mystery. The Girl with All the Gifts. Okay, I really liked this book. I didn't really know what to expect from it. It's like The Institute by Stephen King meets The Walking Dead, but this was published before The Institute. I'm gonna say 4.5. I really liked this book. I should see if the author has written anything else. Okay, September. Okay, so here's the second book in the Silo series after Wool. This one I did not like nearly as much. I felt like the characters, I did not connect to them at all. The story that it was telling was not nearly as interesting. So I think I'm going to give it 3.5 because I did like finding out more about the world, but I am excited to read the third book. I want to start it really soon. Oh man, The List. Okay, so this is a very controversial book. And so it's about a woman who is kind of an influencer, and her fiance, who she is about to marry, is put on this list of anonymous accusations, basically, of sexual assault. And so she has to decide what she's going to do about that. I would have to talk about this for a lot longer to discuss my feelings on the subject, but I think I'm going to give it 3.75. Like, I think she did better at handling the nuance than the bad reviews are giving her credit for, but I don't think she did as good of a job with the nuance as the good reviews are giving her credit for. So yeah, I don't know. Oh my god, A Doll's House. Okay, so this is a play that was written in 1879, as you can see here, that is addressing the role of women in marriage and society in 1879, which is wild. And it is incredible to me, honestly, that a man wrote this in the 1800s, because it was very astute in just like the gaslighting and infantilizing and simultaneous responsibility given to women. Infuriating to listen to so much, but I really recommend it. It's, obviously pretty short, and yeah, I think I'm gonna give it 4.75 because I really liked it. Okay, El Extraño Verano de Tom Harvey. This is a mystery book. It was fine, nothing to write home about. I'm gonna give it 3.5. In the Company of Witches. This is a cozy fantasy mystery, really cute, quite forgettable. There is a second book that I will probably listen to at some point. I think I'll give it 4 stars. Neutrally positive on the subject. This was kind of about grief though, so if that's something that's triggering for you, this might not be so much of a cozy book. I did review this, but it doesn't look like I rated it. España no es solo blanca, we're gonna give 4.5 stars. It was really good. The Shadow Sister. It's a really interesting young adult mystery, suspense, slightly speculative. I think I would give it 4 stars. I would recommend it for a YA book. Rouge I did rate because it was an arc. I really liked this book. There were aspects of it that did not work for me, and I felt like it was a lot longer than it needed to be. It should have been a novella in my opinion, but really interesting commentary on the beauty industry, not so much makeup and everything, but like youth, maintaining your youth and the white supremacist ideals and that sort of thing. Oh god, hey hun. I thought that I was really gonna like this book because I really like anti-MLM content. I did not like this book at all. I thought that she was high-key, like, capitalizing on not anti-MLM content in order to just continue grifting. It seemed like she learned absolutely nothing. She stayed in and stayed profiting off of it long after she knew that it was wrong. Like, there were so many red flags. Yeah, I'm gonna give this 2 stars, and that's maybe generous. This is a short story. For some reason, the whole collection wasn't on here, just individual stories. I would give this story, I think, like a 3.5. It has a fixation, which many horror books do, I think in particular Latin American horror, but all on disfiguration, which I think is potentially problematic, so that's something that I would love to read more about. Mr. Magic! Okay, so I sobbed listening to this book. This is written by a former Mormon. It's a horror or thriller book, but it's quite deeply about religion and religious messaging and the kind of insidious effect that has in our society, and how we consider values to be dictated by Christianity in our society, whether or not we are Christian. So anyway, very interesting. There were aspects of it that I didn't feel like were really well done from a craft perspective. The pacing was a little bit odd. The ending was honestly ridiculous. I didn't like the ending at all, but I didn't really care because I loved the experience of reading the book so much. So I think for me personally, this is going to get a 4.5 stars, but I completely understand why it wouldn't for other people. Battery change. October. I only read 2 books, or only finished 2 books. The first 2 Heartstopper volumes. So I read these both in Spanish, and they were really cute. I don't think I quite get the obsession to the same level that some people do. I think I'm gonna give them 4 stars. Well, right now I'm not gonna do anything. I do like the themes in them, and I think that for younger people especially, they could be really important. Then we'll just skip ahead to the 3rd one, which I also read in November. I read this on my phone in Spain. So then I read La Cosecha Pálida, which I do think was an interesting mystery thriller. Not groundbreaking, but pretty decent. I think I would give it 3.75. Largo Pétalo de Mar. I think this would be a 4.25 for me. The thing about Isabel Allende's books so far is that I always have the most vivid experience, almost always, have a very vivid experience reading them, but then afterwards, because they're these, sagas, I remember La Casa de los Espíritus pretty well. I remember a lot of that book. But the other ones, I find myself just getting a vibe from the book when I'm done with it. So it's kind of hard to remember them and rate them. Then El Descontento. I have no idea how to rate this book. 3.75 maybe. This was a really interesting premise. It's about the modern work environment of corporate performance art, and how difficult it is to have a life that isn't just coming home and watching YouTube and everything. But the ending was a little odd, and I feel like I could have done a lot more. That's obviously a very rich subject in which I am very interested, and I really enjoyed listening to this, but do I feel like it was impactful? No. Then, Ciudad XJ. Another one that I don't know how to rate because I really need to reread this 100%. So I think in the meantime, I am going to read it 4 stars because I really liked this and I do think it has really interesting messages. I need to understand it a lot better. December! It's the final countdown. Okay, Cantores. This is a beautiful book, and so many people absolutely loved it, and I did really, really like it. I just feel like I had a few more issues with some of the characterizations and the pacing and everything. It's an incredibly gorgeous book, beautifully written, and it's following 5 women during the dictatorship in Uruguay who are all queer, and the different, paths that their lives take and the way that that shows up in their relationships and lives. So I think for me it's a 4 star. El Dragón de la Noche. I can't remember what I've rated the other books in this series. I remember one of them I think got a 3.5 or something like that because the characters were really annoying me during the book, but I think the rest of them probably have been somewhere in the 4-star area, and this one is going to be 2, I think. It could probably be a 3.75 because it's not very memorable, but that's also not very fair for me to rate as a grown-ass adult. For Spanish learners, I definitely recommend this series. So this is the graphic novel called Frizzy, or Rizos in Spanish, about hair bias, the ways that anti-blackness shows up in what we consider good hair, professional hair, all those kinds of things, and especially in the, Latin community. I'm going to say 4.5 stars. The art was adorable. It was very sweet. No complaints. La Sombra del Viento. 3.5. This one is going to be a 3.5. It was pretty, very creating a world, and obviously I love the idea of the conceit of this series is that there's a library or a cemetery of forgotten books, and so I love that aspect of it. The characters did not like almost any of them. The sexism, very high levels, and the plot just could have been more, I don't know. It just needed a little bit more for me. Okay, Gaslight is the second in the series that we saw earlier with Light Seeker, I think was what the first one was called. This one I did find much easier to follow than Light Seeker. It was a little bit simpler of a plot, but also easier to follow. So, pluses and minuses. I think that this would be a 4-star. I like the characters. I like his style of writing. Okay, El Vampiro del Libre. Really liked this audiobook. I think I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. This was a really fun, immersive, historical fantasy type, dark academia kind of thing. And I wish that there was a series that I could just keep listening to, because to me this is the perfect winter listen. Nervous Conditions. Read this in 2 days. It was so good. I don't know, is this a 5-star book? I think for me this is a 4.75, but I don't know. That one could get moved up to a 5-star. I do occasionally change these ratings after I do this. You can't expect me to make a decision and stick to it, because that's just not the kind of person that I am. Oh dear. Preguntas frecuentes. Difficult to rate such a short book, but I think I would give it 4 stars. It was really, really good. Don't know how much it's going to stick with me. And then my final read, which I finished on December 31st, is Venice Underground by Jeff Vandermeer. So it did take me almost a full third of this book to get into it, definitely at least 25%. And so, that is obviously going to factor into it as well. I didn't feel like his ideas were nearly as well developed as they were in his later books. This is his very first novel, and if you're not familiar, I love Jeff Vandermeer. I haven't read all of his works yet, but I am working on it, and some of my absolute favorite books are by Jeff Vandermeer. So, with that in mind, I think this would be 3.75 or 4. I think it's going to be a 3.75, which feels harsh, but yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it. Okay, so let's take a look at our stats. No, we are on the last step. Okay, well, if I can get the stats off of here later, then I will put them on here. This is my average rating for the year. I did post some of the summary ones on Instagram earlier, so I can look at those. So I read 120 books total. I don't set any reading goal numbers, except I did set a goal to read 50 books in Spanish this year. My top moods were dark, emotional, mysterious, tense, reflective, adventurous. Most of my books were medium paced and under 500 pages. I read 8% nonfiction, 92% fiction, 39% print, 22% digital, and 39% audio. Some of those print and digital do have the audio along with them, but I only count them as audio if I purely listened to them. I read 55% in English, 43.3% in Spanish, and 1.7% in French. My top genres were literary, fantasy, thriller, mystery, LGBTQIA+, contemporary, historical, young adult. So that is everything. Have been off of BookTube for several months. So that actually started with that I made a September wrap-up, fully edited it, and when I hit the export button, my external hard drive, the port jiggled and disconnected from my laptop, and then the file was corrupted, the editing file, not the export file, so I truly could not do anything. It was just gone forever. So I was either going to have to completely re-edit that or, forget about it. And so I just kind of didn't do anything and then didn't film any other wrap-ups for the rest of the year. So yeah, I do plan to come back to BookTube in some capacity in this next year, but I don't think I will be doing necessarily monthly wrap-ups because sometimes I feel like I end up talking a lot about books that I don't care that much about, because some books I just read for entertainment and I don't necessarily need to talk about every book that I read. But yeah, if you have any thoughts on the subject, or if there were books in here that I haven't talked about in wrap-ups or that you would like to hear more about my opinions on, definitely let me know. I'm thinking about making a kind of notable books wrap-up. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.